Jake Paul. Jake Paul is like that kid in your school who always got in trouble but somehow still managed to have millions of followers on Instagram. He first rose to fame on Vine, and then when that became outdated, he promptly moved to YouTube, where he pulled off pranks, made music, if you can call it that, and challenged every other YouTuber to boxing matches because nothing says internet content like punching people in the face for views. Well, back in 2020, when the world was stuck at home binge-watching shows like Tiger King and baking banana bread, Jake decided to make headlines in a different way. You see, there were massive protests going on across the US, and in Arizona, things got a little out of control, with looting happening at a mall. Now, Jake, being Jake, thought it would be a genius idea to film himself walking through the chaos as people were breaking into stores and stealing stuff. He wasn't looting, but he was definitely in the middle of it. You know, just casually being where he shouldn't even be. When the cops saw this, they were, of course, not very happy, and Mr. YouTuber got charged with unlawful assembly and trespassing. Now, don't get me wrong, he didn't loot, but it was a bit like showing up at a crime scene holding a camera and popcorn, not the smartest move. However, Jake didn't actually go to prison, but he was charged, so he had to do some community service, pay fines, and hopefully think twice about walking into a looting scene like it's a YouTube prank. Andrew Tate, 2023. If you've ever heard about red pill content, then this guy is probably on its front cover page. Andrew Tate, aka Cobra Tate, is a former kickboxing champion, reality TV star, and social media influencer who became notorious for his often controversial and, let's be honest, outrageous takes on women, masculinity, and wealth. He portrayed himself as the ultimate alpha male, complete with private jets, fast cars, and a mansion lifestyle, all while preaching to his massive online following about becoming wealthy and powerful. But, well, his bold and often offensive opinions weren't what landed him behind bars in 2023. So, in December 2022, Andrew Tate was arrested in Romania, where he had been living along with his brother Tristan Tate on charges related to human trafficking, organized crime, and wait for it, apparently, Romanian authorities had been investigating Tate and his brother for allegedly running a criminal organization that exploited women. According to reports, Tate and his crew were accused of luring women into Romania with promises of love or high-paying jobs, but once the women arrived, they were allegedly forced into working for Tate's webcam business, where they were made to perform adult content against their will. It was like a real-life Taken situation, but with a much sketchier ending. After his arrest in 2022, Tate spent several months in Romanian jail but was released in March 2023 and placed under house arrest while the investigation continued. So, while Tate wasn't in prison long-term yet, he's not exactly free to roam the streets or post more alpha male tweets without some serious restrictions. And of course, Andrew Tate didn't just sit quietly while all of this was happening. He and his brother constantly claimed they were innocent and that the entire thing was a conspiracy theory to take them down. Tate suggested that the Matrix, a term he uses to describe the world's elite and power structures, was behind his arrest. Yeah, right. Billy McFarland. Billy McFarland was like that friend who talks a big game but never ever really comes through, except on a global scale. He was a self-proclaimed entrepreneur who thought he could pull off the event of the century by organizing Fyre Festival, a luxury music festival on a private island in the Bahamas. It was supposed to be Instagram heaven with models, luxury villas, A-list performances, and of course, lots of champagne and yachts. But what Billy actually delivered was more like Instagram's version of a horror movie. Stranded guests, soggy mattresses, and food that looked like it was from a school cafeteria. Basically, Billy McFarland bit off way more than he could chew, as the whole festival was just one big scam. He didn't have the money, infrastructure, or planning to pull it off, but he kept promising the world the best of the best. People were legit shelling out thousands of dollars. Some even spent $250,000 for what they thought would be the most exclusive event ever. But it was all smoke and mirrors. There was no private island, no luxury villas, and the only music at Fyre Festival was the sound of disappointed influencers screaming into their phones, trying to get a flight back home. Imagine paying top dollar for a Coachella-type event and ending up in what looked like a tropical refugee camp. That's the level of of disaster we're talking about here. Now, here's where the real trouble started. You see, all that money people paid for tickets? Well, Mr. Billy didn't have that money. He was basically just using investor funds and scamming people to cover up his lack of actual resources, so the whole festival wasn't just a flop, but a full-blown fraud. If Fake It Till You Make It was a person, it'd be Billy McFarland. Except he didn't quite make it at all. Billy was charged with wire fraud because he scammed people out of $26 million. Yes, you heard that right. It's one thing to throw a bad party, it's another to con people into paying for a disaster. Tekashi 6ix9ine, Daniel Hernandez. If you saw this guy walking down the street, you'd probably wonder if a pack of Skittles exploded in his general direction. Tekashi 6ix9ine, also known as Daniel Hernandez, was a man as colorful and loud as his rainbow hair and became popular because of his in-your-face style and aggressive and wild songs. But with great fame comes great bad decisions, because Tekashi wasn't just making headlines for his music. He was constantly getting involved in drama, beef with other rappers, and some serious legal problems. It all started when he got involved with the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods, a notorious street gang in New York, and started doing things that had nothing to do with music and everything to do with street crime. In 2018, he was arrested and charged with racketeering, conspiracy to murder, armed robbery, and drug trafficking. In case you're wondering, racketeering isn't a fancy word for racking up views on YouTube. It's a serious crime involving organized criminal activity. Tekashi was basically acting like he was in a gangster movie, but the difference was this wasn't fiction. He even got tied up in gang activities, including shootings and robberies, and the FBI was not impressed with his attempts to be a real-life bad guy. Now here's where the story takes a crazy turn. Facing 47 years to life in prison. Yes, life. Tekashi decided that life behind bars wasn't for him, so he made the ultimate move and he flipped on his gang members. This guy literally became the snitch of the century and testified against his former gang buddies, giving up tons of information in exchange for a shorter sentence. In 2019, after cooperating with the authorities, Tekashi was sentenced to 2 years in prison. That's right, 2 years instead of potentially life. Joe Exotic. Joe Exotic, born Joseph Maldonado Passage, though he has about as many last names as hairstyles, is a flamboyant, gun-toting, mullet-wearing guy who once owned a private zoo full of exotic animals in Oklahoma. And by exotic animals, we're talking lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. How that was even legal is beyond crazy. Well, aside from being a private zoo owner, Joe was also an internet personality, a country singer, and a man who had never met a camera he didn't like. His GW Zoo became infamous for letting people interact with baby tigers, and Joe would film himself doing everything from feeding lions to shooting guns. You could say he was the Tiger King before the documentary even came out, although the crown would come with some serious consequences. A big part of Joe's story and downfall involves his long-standing feud with Carol Baskin, an animal rights activist who runs a big cat rescue in Florida. Carol was always after Joe, claiming that he was mistreating his animals and accusing him of exploiting them for profit. Joe, in turn, was obsessed with hating Carol. It was like a reality TV rivalry, but with more tigers. Joe made it his life's mission to take Carol down, literally. He talked trash about her on his internet show, accused her of killing her husband, because naturally there was a rumor that Carol's missing husband had become tiger food, and even made country music videos about her. If you've seen his music video for Here Kitty Kitty, you know it's pure internet gold. Well, things get even crazier, if that's even possible, as Joe's hatred for Carol Baskin escalated to the point where he allegedly hired someone to kill her. That's right. Joe Exotic was involved in a murder-for-hire plot. In 2019, Joe was arrested and charged with trying to hire a hitman to kill Carol, and apparently the hitman was an undercover FBI agent. So, yeah, not the brightest move on Joe's part. But wait, there's more, because Joe was also hit with 17 wildlife violations for killing 5 tigers at his zoo and illegally selling and transporting exotic animals. You know, just in case the whole murder plot wasn't enough to send him to jail. In 2020, Joe Exotic was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. Anna Sorokin, Delvey. Just imagine being so bad that Netflix literally had to make a whole series based on your life and deceit. Anna Sorokin, known to her high society victims as Anna Delvey, was a Russian-born young woman who moved to New York in 2013 and basically rebranded herself as a wealthy German heiress. You know how people sometimes exaggerate their resumes? Anna took it to a whole new level because she didn't just fake a few skills, she faked her entire life story. Anna managed to convince everyone she was rich, like trust fund baby rich, and she played the part perfectly. She dressed in expensive designer clothes, stayed in the most luxurious hotels, partied at the hottest spots in New York City, and rubbed elbows with some of the wealthiest people around. It was all part of her plan to build her own exclusive art club, the Anna Delvey Foundation, which didn't even exist. But hey, details, right? The wildest part is that for a while, everyone believed her. She lived the dream life without actually having any of the money to back it up. It was like playing Monopoly, but with real hotels, real cash, and real consequences. Now, you might be wondering how she paid for all this, right? Well, here is where the con happened. She was able to live the high life by convincing people to front the bills for her luxurious lifestyle. She promised to pay them back, of course, but that day never seemed to come. She'd stay at some of New York's most expensive hotels, racking up bills in the tens of thousands, and then avoid paying by saying that wire transfers from her non-existent overseas accounts were on the way, or blaming bank issues. Anna even tried to secure a $22 million loan to fund her fake art foundation. She forged documents, made up fake financial records, and lied her way through meetings with banks. She didn't get the loan, but she did manage to convince one bank to give her a $100,000 overdraft. Yes, you heard that right. She sweet-talked her way into six figures without so much as a cent to her name. In the end, Anna's web of lies began to unravel when people started asking questions about those promised wire transfers, and she was arrested in 2017 for multiple counts of grand larceny and theft of services. But by this point, she had successfully defrauded banks, hotels, and individuals out of $275,000. She was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison along with a hefty fine and an order to pay restitution to her victims. Nikita Dragon. So imagine you're lounging at the ultra-chic Good Time Hotel in Miami Beach, sipping on a cocktail and enjoying some poolside relaxation, when you suddenly hear a commotion and see Nikita Dragon herself strutting around the pool area like she's on a runway. Except she's not exactly dressed for the occasion. In fact, she's not dressed at all. That's right, Nikita was reportedly wandering around nude. The hotel staff, obviously confused and more than a little shocked, asked Nikita to cover up and calm down. But if you know Nikita Dragon, you know that calm isn't exactly in her vocabulary. Instead, she decided to up the drama by allegedly throwing water at the hotel staff. Because, you know, when you're feeling attacked, sometimes you just have to attack back with hydration. Understandably, the hotel called the police, and officers showed up hoping to de-escalate things and maybe give her a metaphorical makeup wipe to clean up this mess. But Nikita had other plans. She allegedly grabbed an open water bottle and threw it at a police officer and a security guard. Yes, folks, she made the bold move of turning H2O into her weapon of choice. Well, the beauty guru found herself slapped with some serious charges: felony battery on a law enforcement officer, misdemeanor disorderly conduct, and misdemeanor battery. It's like she went from beautiful influencer to criminal mastermind faster than you can say setting spray. Nikita was arrested and taken to the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center, and after spending some time in custody, Nikita was able to strut her way out of jail by posting a $5,000 bond. Lindsay Lohan. If you grew up watching The Parent Trap, Freaky Friday, or Mean Girls, you know Lindsay Lohan as the super talented redhead who could act, sing, and make fetch happen. She was Hollywood's golden girl. But by the mid-2000s, her life took a turn more chaotic than a joyride in a circus. First of all, in 2007, Lindsay was arrested for driving under the influence, a DUI, and even got caught in a bizarre car chase. And then, just 2 weeks later, she was arrested again for another DUI, and for driving with a suspended license. She also had cocaine on her both times. To make matters worse, after being sentenced to probation for her DUI, Lindsay kept violating it by skipping court-ordered alcohol education classes, missing court dates, and failing drug tests. In 20 2010, a judge famously sentenced her to 90 days in jail for violating her probation, and Lindsay showed up in court with "F-U" written on her fingernail. The very next year, Lindsay was accused of stealing a $2,500 necklace from a jewelry store in Venice, California. She claimed it was a misunderstanding, but the court wasn't buying it, and this incident landed her another stint in jail and more probation, turning her life into one big sparkly mess. Now, despite all these legal issues, Lindsay never spent that much time in jail. In fact, her first sentence in 2007 was just 84 minutes. Her later sentences were longer due to a jail overcrowding in Los Angeles. She often got out after just a few days. Then in 2010, she was sentenced to 90 days, but she only served 14 days. So basically, jail for Lindsay was more like a really boring weekend away. Are you a fan of the Evaluator channel and all the amazing content you watch here? Well, you can show your favorite creators your love and support by heading over to the Evaluator shop and copying some of the most amazing mesh products ever. Cat Williams. Cat Williams is a legendary comedian known for his pimp persona, sharp suits, and jokes that'll make you laugh until you cry. His stand-up specials like The Pimp Chronicles, high-pitched voice, and wild antics have made him a household name. But let's just say Cat doesn't only perform in front of audiences. Sometimes he ends up performing for a judge, too. The guy is as famous for his comedy as he is for his legendary list of legal troubles. No joke though, Cat has been arrested more times than your phone dies when you need it most. His very first behind bars experience happened in 2016 when Cat was apparently in a restaurant after allegedly throwing a salt shaker at the manager. Apparently he wasn't happy with his meal, and instead of just asking for a refund like a normal person, Cat went full-on throwing salt like it's a witch hunting ritual. Now, if you think that's bad, wait till you hear how this guy got locked up because he got into a fist fight with a kid, a literal 7th grader. The altercation was caught on video, and despite Cat's bravado, the teenager put him in a chokehold. The internet exploded with memes, and Cat was charged with disorderly conduct. In another really strange event, Cat led police on a chase through the streets of Sacramento on a motorized tricycle. He was practically zipping around like he was in a live-action version of Mario Kart, but eventually abandoned the tricycle inside a Target where he was arrested. Talk about a wild ride. Speaking of Target, Cat was caught on camera slapping a Target employee across the face in a totally separate event. The employee appeared shocked, and Cat casually walked away like he didn't just give someone a hot slap across the face. He was arrested again, and the footage became viral gold.